August 15th, 2024. A Wednesday morning. Hot as hell in Homestead, Florida. I'm 38 years old, operating an excavator at a demolition site, and I have absolutely no idea I'm about to solve the mystery that's haunted my family since I was 6 years old. My name is Miguel Santos, third-generation construction worker. I've been doing this job for Alvarez Construction for 3 weeks now. Just another gig clearing an old mobile home park to make room for luxury condos. Same story all over Florida. Tear down the working-class past to build the high-rise future. The site is called Sunset Gardens. Means nothing to me. Just another address on the work order. I don't know, I couldn't possibly know, that my grandfather, Ernesto Santos, disappeared from this exact spot 32 years ago. That every time I move this excavator, I'm literally digging through the place where he vanished during Hurricane Andrew in 1992. My mom never told me which mobile home park it was. Just said Homestead, that's all. Too painful to be more specific. Hey, real quick, where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I'm curious how far this story is reaching. The math seems impossible, right? South Florida has 2.7 million people, thousands of construction workers, hundreds of old sites being demolished. What are the odds that the grandson of a victim would be the one operating the excavator that discovers the truth? I don't believe in God much, I told the detectives later, but I think my abuelito led me here. I think he's been waiting 32 years for me to find him. At 10:47 a.m. on that Wednesday morning, my excavator bucket is going to punch through concrete and reveal a horror that will rewrite my family history, expose a serial killer, and finally explain why my mother could never talk about Hurricane Andrew without crying. Behind me, the August sun beats down on abandoned concrete slabs where 23 senior citizens vanished without a trace in 1992. Until now. Let me take you back. Back to when Sunset Gardens was actually a place where people lived. The park was built in 1967, sitting 7 miles inland from Homestead on what locals called Hurricane Row, a corridor of low-income housing that caught the worst of every major storm. 340 residents lived in aluminum frame mobile homes on rented lots. $285 a month, affordable if you were on Social Security and had nowhere else to go. The numbers tell you everything. 78% of residents were over 65. Many were Hispanic and Haitian immigrants who'd arrived in the 70s and 80s chasing Florida's retirement promise. What they got was a hurricane-prone trailer park, where the American dream came with aluminum siding and a monthly lease. The park had 8 residential buildings, labeled A through H. Each building held 45 units. Buildings A, B, and C formed what they called the senior section, 135 units, specifically for residents 55 and older. Building C had something special, a community storm shelter in the basement, built in 1968 after Hurricane Betsy scared everyone straight. Reinforced concrete bunker, 18-inch thick walls, could hold 60 people, emergency supplies, battery-powered lights, and thick steel doors that sealed from the inside. The shelter sat at the center of Building C, accessible through exterior stairs that descended from ground level. When hurricanes came, residents from all 8 buildings would converge there, the safest place in Sunset Gardens. 5 residents of Building C would disappear on August 24, 1992. My grandfather Ernesto Santos was one of them. 72 years old, widower, retired mechanic from Puerto Rico, Unit C12. His family, my family, lived in New York. We hadn't seen him in 3 years. No money for plane tickets, no money for anything. Linda Zhao, 68, Chinese immigrant widow, Unit C23. Her daughter Margaret lived in Miami, just 40 minutes away. She talked to her mother every single day, Robert and Helen Kowalski, 70 and 67. Polish immigrants married 45 years. Unit C31, no children, no family in the United States, just each other. Dorothy Reeves, 79, African-American retired nurse, Unit C18. She had a nephew in Atlanta who called once a week. None of them seemed connected beyond casual neighbor relationships. They'd say hello in the hallways, share coffee occasionally, but they weren't close friends. But someone in Sunset Gardens was watching all of them very, very carefully. August 23, 1992, the day before Hurricane Andrew, the last normal day any of them would ever have. 7 in the morning. My grandfather Ernesto wakes up in his small unit, turns on his radio. The announcer's voice is urgent. Hurricane Andrew has strengthened to Category 5. Sustained winds 165 miles per hour. Catastrophic damage expected. Ernesto makes café con leche the way he's been making it for 50 years. Sits on his tiny porch in the pre-dawn darkness. He's been through hurricanes before. Hurricane David in Puerto Rico in 1979. Hurricane Elena right here in Florida in 1985. He survived both. His neighbor walks past, loading suitcases into a car. "You evacuating, Ernesto?" "I'm too old to drive to Georgia," Ernesto says, which is partly true. The fuller truth, his 1981 Chevy needs $400 in transmission work. He has $62 until his next Social Security check on September 1st. He couldn't evacuate if he wanted to. "I'll go to the basement if it gets really bad," he tells his neighbor. "That concrete box can survive anything." He believes this completely. 11 in the morning. Linda Zhao is on the phone with her daughter Margaret, who's already in her car driving south from Miami. "Mama, please pack a bag. I'm coming to get you." "The roads are too dangerous now," Linda says, watching the gridlock on US 1 through her window. "Everyone is leaving at the same time. You'll sit in traffic for hours. I'll be safe in the shelter. Mr. Vickers showed us last year. Very strong, very safe." "Mama, please." "I'll call you when the storm passes," Linda says. "Don't worry." Margaret Zhao will replay this conversation 10,000 times over the next 32 years. Every word, every inflection, the casual confidence in her mother's voice, the assumption that safety was guaranteed. 2 in the afternoon. Robert and Helen Kowalski stand in their living room, surrounded by 45 years of accumulated life. Photos from Krakow, Helen's mother's china, carried from Poland in 1947. Robert's tool collection, wrenches and hammers and screwdrivers he used to fix everything in this park for 2 decades. They're both in wheelchairs now. Diabetes complications stole their mobility 3 years ago. "We can't leave all this," Helen says, her hand touching the china cabinet. "We can't drive anymore anyway," Robert adds. "They've outlived most of their friends. They have no children. Who would they evacuate with? Where would they go?" "The basement," Robert decides. "We'll go when Mr. Vickers tells us it's time." They trust Mr. Vickers. The maintenance man, he's always been helpful, always checking if they need anything. 6 in the evening. Dorothy Reeves, the retired nurse who's seen everything in her 79 years, is preparing the one bag she'll take to the shelter. Medications, important papers, a photo of her late husband, James, who died in 1987. She's pragmatic. She survived segregation in the 1940s, survived poverty, survived 3 prior hurricanes. She knows how to prepare. She knows how to survive. There's a knock at her door. She opens it to find Timothy Vickers standing there, the maintenance man's son, late 30s, always polite, always offering to help. "Just checking on everyone, Miss Dorothy," Tim says, smiling. "Storm's coming fast now. I'll be here all night making sure everyone gets to the shelter safely." Dorothy smiles back, grateful. It's nice having someone who cares. Someone who'll look after the elderly residents when the storm hits. "Thank you, Timothy. You're a good boy." She has absolutely no idea she's looking at the man who will murder her in 9 hours. 1 in the morning, August 24th. Hurricane Andrew is 120 miles offshore, moving west at 18 miles per hour. Sustained winds, 165 miles per hour. The National Hurricane Center issues their starkest warning. Evacuate immediately. This storm will cause catastrophic damage. 3 in the morning. Park manager Robert Vickers, the maintenance man, Timothy's father, drives his pickup truck through Sunset Gardens, leaning on his horn, banging on doors with a flashlight. Most units are dark. 70% of residents evacuated yesterday, but lights glow in Building C. Elderly residents who couldn't afford to leave, who didn't want to abandon their homes, who'd survived storms before and figured they'd survive one more. "Mandatory evacuation," Robert shouts into the wind, which is already picking up, already pulling at his clothes. "If you're staying, get to the basement shelter now." 4:30 in the morning. My grandfather, Ernesto Santos, using a flashlight because the power's been out for 20 minutes, walks toward the basement stairs. The wind is fearsome now, has to be 60, 70 miles per hour already. He sees other shadows moving through the darkness. The Kowalskis, being helped from their unit. Someone's pushing their wheelchairs. Dorothy Reeves with her small bag, walking carefully in the wind. Linda Zhao clutching a bundle of family photos to her chest. At the basement entrance, Timothy Vickers is waiting. Young, strong, helpful. "Come on, everyone!" Timothy shouts over the wind. "Shelter's open! I've got coffee and blankets downstairs. You'll be safe." Timothy is the maintenance man's son, age 36, lives with his father in Unit M1. All the residents know him. He's the one who fixes their toilets, who helps carry their groceries, who checks on them during heat waves. What they don't know, Timothy Vickers is a diagnosed sociopath. County psychiatric evaluation in 1987 during a stint in jail for theft. What they don't know, he's been mapping the park for 18 months. Which residents have valuables? Which ones have no family nearby? Which ones are the most vulnerable? What they don't know, the stairs Timothy is directing them toward don't lead to the actual storm shelter. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. This story gets so much darker, and you're going to want to see how it ends. 5 in the morning. The eye wall of Hurricane Andrew is 15 minutes away. Timothy Vickers stands at the basement entrance, counting elderly residents as they descend the stairs into darkness. 23 have entered. 23 will never leave. Hurricane Andrew made landfall at 5:05 a.m. as the third strongest hurricane ever to hit the United States mainland. Its compact size, just 22 miles wide, meant all its catastrophic power was concentrated into a narrow 30-mile path of total destruction. Sunset Gardens mobile home park was dead center in that path. At 5:20 a.m., the mobile homes began to explode. I don't mean that figuratively. Wind speeds exceeded 180 miles per hour in gusts. The aluminum structures, never designed for anything above 110, simply disintegrated. Roofs became projectiles traveling at highway speeds. Walls buckled like cardboard. Entire units lifted off their foundations and tumbled across the park like children's toys. The sound was hellish, a continuous roar, like standing behind a jet engine, punctuated by the shriek of metal tearing, propane tanks exploding, glass shattering into a million pieces. Building C's surface structures, the community room, the above-ground portion of the shelter entrance, were destroyed within 10 minutes. The debris field spread for miles. Pieces of Sunset Gardens were later found 15 miles away, embedded in trees, scattered across highways. Virginia Martinez, 62, Unit A7, was killed when her trailer collapsed on her bed, crushed instantly. Thomas Brennan, 71, Unit B22, died from flying debris that penetrated his walls like bullets and struck him in the chest. At least 8 other residents died in the initial impact. Bodies found crushed, impaled, or with massive blunt force trauma. The hurricane passed by 9 in the morning. Sunrise revealed apocalypse. Sunset Gardens was gone, just gone. A graveyard of twisted metal, shattered wood, scattered belongings. Fires burned in 3 locations. Propane leaked from ruptured tanks, creating invisible clouds of explosive gas. Electrical wires sparked in standing water. Communication was impossible, all infrastructure destroyed. Roads were impassable, blocked by debris and downed power lines. First responders, completely overwhelmed by thousands of casualties across the entire county, didn't reach Sunset Gardens until 2 in the afternoon, 9 hours after landfall. When fire and rescue finally arrived, they found a nightmare. Debris fields 20 feet high, bodies visible in the wreckage, survivors wandering in shock, covered in blood and mud, calling out names of missing loved ones. Here's the crucial thing. In that chaos, no one knew who was supposed to be where. Survivor lists were compiled by shouting names, by family members driving in from other cities, by fragments of records from the destroyed management office. The assumption was simple, logical and completely reasonable. If someone wasn't found alive in the immediate aftermath, they died in the hurricane. Bodies crushed beyond recognition, bodies swept away by water, bodies buried under tons of debris. It was a Category 5 hurricane. Death was expected, mass casualty was expected. No one suspected anything else. The Building C storm shelter was compromised. That's what the rescue crews reported on August 25th. The entrance was buried under 10 feet of twisted metal, concrete chunks and wooden beams. It took a full day just to dig down to where the steel doors should be. When they finally reached the doors and pried them open, they found the concrete bunker flooded with 4 feet of contaminated water, storm surge, sewage, chemicals, and completely empty. No bodies, no survivors, no evidence anyone had been inside during the storm. Park manager Robert Vickers told investigators through tears, "I saw at least 20 people go into that shelter around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Ernesto Santos, Linda Zhao, the Kowalskis, Dorothy Reeves, 15 others I recognized. My son Timothy was helping them get down the stairs. He was being so brave, making sure everyone was safe. He was the last person I saw there." But Timothy Vickers was also missing. The missing from Building C and surrounding areas. Ernesto Santos, 72, last seen entering shelter at 4:47 a.m. Linda Zhao, 68, last talked to her daughter at 4:15 a.m., said she was heading to shelter. Robert and Helen Kowalski, 70 and 67, seen by a neighbor at 4:40 a.m., wheelchairs being pushed toward shelter by someone. Dorothy Reeves, 79, told her nephew at 3 a.m. she was going to shelter with the nice maintenance man. Timothy Vickers, 36, last seen by his father helping residents into shelter. 18 more residents from other buildings were missing, all elderly, all last seen near Building C's shelter area between 4:30 and 5 in the morning. The FBI's theory, they sheltered in the basement, but when the building above collapsed and the basement flooded, they were either swept away by the sudden water surge or the hurricane's extreme violence simply erased them. Bodies could be miles away. Could be buried under debris that won't be cleared for months. Could be in the Everglades, in the ocean, scattered across 3 counties. In a Category 5 hurricane, people disappear. That's just physics. That's just nature. No one suspected Timothy Vickers of anything except heroism. No one suspected the shelter was a trap. August 24 through 26. The first 72 hours, search and rescue focused entirely on finding survivors in the catastrophic debris. Every available resource, local police, county sheriff, state police, National Guard, FEMA, was deployed across the massive disaster zone. Cadaver dogs were brought in on August 26th. They alerted heavily around Building C's perimeter, but found no bodies. The handlers explained this was common in major disasters. Scent dispersed by water, by chemical contamination, by the sheer violence of the storm disrupting everything. My mother, Rosa Santos, drove down from New York with me. I was 6 years old and her 3 brothers. We arrived August 27th to find Homestead looking like a war zone, like photos from World War II, complete devastation. Rosa didn't let me see the worst. She left me with her brothers at an emergency shelter while she searched for her father. I found nothing, she tells me now, 32 years later. Dad's unit was just gone. A concrete slab and some twisted metal. I walked that slab for an hour looking for anything. I found one of his tools, a socket wrench, and that's all I have of him. She asked about the shelter. Firefighters explained it was flooded, empty, no signs anyone died there. But my dad told me he was going there, Rosa insisted. He called me at midnight. He said he was going to the shelter. Mom, the hurricane was chaos. Maybe he changed his mind at the last second. Maybe he tried to evacuate. Maybe he was swept away before he reached the shelter. We may never find him, I'm sorry. Those words, "we may never find him," would echo in Rosa's head for 32 years. September 1992, the first month after the storm. The FBI joined the investigation because of the unusual cluster of missing persons from one specific building. 23 people, all from the same area, all last seen heading to the same shelter. They interviewed Robert Vickers extensively. The man was devastated, barely functional. "My son Timothy was helping residents into the shelter," Robert said through tears. "He was a good boy, always helped the elderly residents. They loved him. He'd carry groceries for them, fix things in their units for free. And that morning, during the worst hurricane in decades, he was making sure they got to safety." Robert broke down crying. "I haven't seen him since the storm. I think he died helping them. I think my son sacrificed himself to save others." The FBI agents, moved by this heartbreaking testimony, wrote in their report, "Timothy Vickers appears to have died in the line of humanitarian duty, assisting elderly residents to shelter during Hurricane Andrew. No evidence of foul play. Timothy Vickers went from missing person to hero presumed dead. His name was added to a memorial of Hurricane Andrew victims." His father received condolence letters from the families of the missing residents, thanking Timothy for trying to save their loved ones. December 1992. 4 months after the hurricane, Rosa Santos held a funeral for her father in New York. Open casket funeral. Except there was no body. just an empty casket with a folded Puerto Rican flag. I was 6 years old. I stood next to that empty casket in my too big suit, not understanding why Abuelito was dead, but we didn't have him. "Mama, where is Abuelito?" I asked. "The hurricane took him," Rosa said, which was true enough. True in the way that mattered. She couldn't explain the rest. Couldn't explain that his body was just gone, that he disappeared, that we'd probably never find him. How do you explain that to a 6-year-old? She never told me which park it was, never said Sunset Gardens, just said Homestead. Too painful to be specific. Too painful to ever go back. Real quick, if this story is affecting you, leave a like. It helps more people find this, and I think this story needs to be told. 1993 through 1995, years 1 through 3 after Hurricane Andrew. The case officially remained open missing in police files, but active investigations ceased. There were no new leads, no new evidence, no reason to believe anything except the obvious. 23 elderly people died in a Category 5 hurricane. The FBI file's final conclusion read, 23 residents of Sunset Gardens Mobile Home Park are presumed dead in Hurricane Andrew on August 24, 1992. Despite extensive search efforts, remains were not recovered. This is consistent with the extreme violence of a Category 5 hurricane and the subsequent flooding. No evidence of foul play. Case remains open, pending discovery of remains. Timothy Vickers was listed as a victim, presumed dead, honored as a hero. 1996 through 2000, years 4 through 8. Sunset Gardens sat abandoned. The property entered bankruptcy, then legal limbo. Insurance companies fighting with property owners, developers backing out, financing falling through. Rosa Santos visited once in 1998, drove down from New York by herself, walked among the concrete slabs that were all that remained. She stood where she thought her father's unit had been and cried for an hour. She never returned. Too painful. I was a teenager by then. I knew my grandfather died in a hurricane in Florida, but nothing more. My mother never discussed details. If I asked, she'd change the subject. I learned not to ask. 2001 through 2010, years 9 through 18. The property changed hands multiple times, but remained undeveloped. Zoning problems, environmental assessments, financing issues. The recession in 2008 killed several development attempts. Nature reclaimed the land. Palmetto bushes grew through foundations. Vines covered concrete slabs. It became an accidental nature preserve, quietly returning to wilderness. I became a construction worker, following my father and grandfather into the trade. Got married, had 2 kids, lived in Orlando. Never thought much about my grandfather's death anymore. It was ancient history, childhood trauma, long processed. 2011 through 2024, years 19 through 32. Margaret Zhao, Linda's daughter, became the only family member who still visited the abandoned park annually, always on August 24th. She maintained a small memorial of photos zip-tied to the chain-link fence that surrounded the property. Every year, she'd stand there and talk to her mother. "I should have driven faster, Mama. I should have left earlier. I should have made you leave with me." Guilt she'd carry until the truth emerged. In 2023, a development company finally secured financing. Luxury condos, market-rate housing. Sunset Gardens would be demolished, the land cleared, the past erased. Demolition was scheduled for summer 2024. I needed work. My company in Orlando had downsized. My wife found the listing. Experienced excavator operator needed. Homestead area. Alvarez Construction. Demolition project. I applied, got hired, reported for work in late July. "What's the site?" I asked. "Old Mobile Home Park, Sunset Gardens." Meant nothing to me. I never mentioned it to my mother. Why would I? Just another job, just another demolished building. I had no idea this was where my grandfather disappeared. I had no idea I was about to walk into his tomb. August 15th, 2024. Week 4 of demolition. Thursday morning. I've been operating the excavator for 3 weeks, methodically removing foundations. The work is repetitive, meditative. Scoop concrete, dump in truck, repeat. Building A, Building B, now Building C. Building C is the last structure. After this, the site will be completely clear. 10:47 a.m. My excavator bucket bites into what should be solid concrete foundation, but it feels wrong, not solid, hollow. I've been doing this long enough to know the difference between solid concrete and concrete over a void. I carefully remove more material, creating a larger opening. I reveal what looks like a hidden basement space, maybe 20 feet by 30 feet, separate from anything on the building plans. My bucket has punched a hole through its concrete ceiling. I shut off the excavator, climb down, grab my flashlight. I shine the light through the hole, and my entire world stops. Bones, human bones, lots of them, scattered across the floor of this hidden space, and something else, something that makes my blood freeze. Dozens of wallets, purses, watches, and jewelry arranged on a shelf along one wall, organized like a museum display, like trophies. "Oh my God," I whisper. I back away from the hole, trembling. I'm supposed to be tough, construction worker, third generation, I've seen everything. But this is different. This is horror. I pull out my phone, call my supervisor. "You need to see this right now. Don't ask questions. Just come." Within 1 hour, police establish crime scene perimeter with yellow tape surrounding the entire excavation area. Medical examiner Dr. Patricia Kim arrives with a full forensic team. Detective Carmen Rodriguez from Miami-Dade Homicide takes charge. News helicopter footage begins broadcasting images with the Chiron. Mass grave found at Hurricane Andrew site. Within 3 hours, Margaret Zhao sees the news report while eating lunch at her office in Miami. She sees the name Sunset Gardens and starts screaming. Drops everything, drives to the site, arrives still screaming, "Is my mother there? Linda Zhao, is she there?" Rosa Santos is watching TV in her apartment in New York. The breaking news report shows aerial footage. The reporter says, "Sunset Gardens, Mobile Home Park, in Homestead." Rosa's blood goes cold. She hasn't heard that name in 32 years. She calls me immediately. "Miguel, where are you working?" "Some demolition site in Homestead." "Why, Mom, what's wrong?" "What's the name of the site?" Sunset Gardens, I think." "Why are you—" Rosa Santos drops the phone. She knows, somehow impossibly, her son is working at the exact site where her father disappeared. "Miguel," she says, picking up the phone again, voice shaking. "That's where your grandfather died. That's where Abuelito disappeared. I can't process this. Can't make it make sense." "What?" "The hurricane, 1992. He was living at Sunset Gardens. That's where he died. That's where he—" She starts crying. 32 years of grief suddenly reopened, and I'm standing at the edge of a hidden basement full of bones, suddenly understanding that my grandfather might be down there. Within 6 hours, the forensic team has made a preliminary assessment. 23 human skeletons in various states of preservation, all elderly based on bone density analysis, wear patterns on joints, and dental work. No trauma consistent with hurricane damage, no crushing injuries, no projectile impact damage, no signs of being struck by debris. Instead, evidence of manual strangulation or suffocation in several cases. And most crucially, the hidden room was sealed from the outside. Heavy steel door locked. The victims were trapped inside. Dr. Kim, the medical examiner, tells Detective Rodriguez, "This wasn't a hurricane burial. This wasn't a mass grave from a natural disaster. This was a death chamber. Someone built this specifically to kill these people." Over 3 weeks, forensic teams excavate the hidden basement with archaeological precision. Every bone documented, every item catalogued, every square inch of that hellish room examined. The final inventory makes me sick. 23 complete skeletons matching exactly the 23 missing residents from Hurricane Andrew. Identification through dental records and DNA confirms all victims. Ernesto Santos, my grandfather. My abuelito, who I barely remember. Linda Zhao, Margaret's mother. Robert and Helen Kowalski, the Polish couple who'd been married 45 years. Dorothy Reeves, the retired nurse. 19 others, all elderly, all vulnerable, all trusted someone they shouldn't have. Cause of death, asphyxiation. Carbon monoxide poisoning and suffocation. Time of death, August 24th, 1992, between 5 and 6 a.m., right when Hurricane Andrew was making landfall. The room was hermetically sealed with a steel door now rusted shut, had to be cut open by forensic teams. A generator was found inside, had been used to pump carbon monoxide into the sealed space through a modified exhaust system. The personal effects shelf makes me want to vomit. Every victim's valuables carefully arranged, labeled with their names, organized like a museum exhibition, like trophies. Santos, E., $340 cash, gold watch, wedding ring. Zhao, L. Jade jewelry set, estimated value $12,200. Kowalski R&H silverware set, coin collection. Every single item documented by the killer. And then they find the journal. 87 pages, water-damaged but legible, detailing the crime in methodical, horrifying detail. Each entry signed, TV, Timothy Vickers. The task force works around the clock. DNA analysis, forensic reconstruction, timeline mapping. The picture that emerges is nightmare fuel. Timothy Allen Vickers, age 36 in 1992, now 68 in 2024. Background check reveals a monster hiding in plain sight. Son of park manager Robert Vickers. Lived on site in Maintenance Unit M1. Criminal history, petty theft, breaking and entering, fraud. 3 separate arrests. Psychological evaluation from 1987 after a county jail stint. Diagnosed as sociopath with narcissistic tendencies and complete absence of empathy. Worked as assistant maintenance man at Sunset Gardens, giving him access to all buildings, all units, all residents. The elderly residents trusted him completely. He was helpful, friendly, always offering to fix things, carry groceries, check on people. His plan, revealed in the journal, was 18 months in the making. Phase 1, early 1991. Built hidden basement under guise of utility space renovation, falsified building permits. Did all the work himself at night. Phase 2, 1991-1992. Spent 18 months identifying targets. Wealthy residents with valuable possessions. Residents with no nearby family. Residents who were isolated, vulnerable. Phase 3, August 1992. Waited for a major hurricane as cover. Hurricane Andrew was perfect. Category 5, catastrophic damage expected, mass casualties anticipated. Phase 4, August 24, 1992, during Andrew. Lured 23 selected targets to what they thought was the storm shelter. Actually led them to his death chamber. Phase 5, locked them in, started the generator, pumped carbon monoxide into the sealed room, waited 45 minutes until they were all dead. Phase 6, collected their valuables. Total value, $127,000 in cash, jewelry, and collectibles. For 1992, that's equivalent to about $280,000 today. Phase 7, sealed the room permanently, concealed the entrance under debris, emerged during the chaos claiming he'd been helping people evacuate. After the hurricane, Timothy Vickers stayed for 3 days, helping with rescue efforts, all while carrying $127,000 in stolen valuables in his truck. On August 27th, he told his father he was going to check on an aunt in Georgia. He never returned. He was declared missing, presumed dead, honored as a hero who sacrificed himself helping elderly residents. The reality, he walked away with a fortune and started a new life in North Carolina under a false identity. Drop a comment below if you're still watching. I need to know people are hearing this. This story needs to be told. Let me reconstruct that morning for you. August 24th, 1992, 4:30 to 6:30 a.m. The timeline of a perfect murder. 4:30 a.m. Hurricane Andrew is bearing down 15 minutes from landfall. Timothy Vickers stands at what residents think is the storm shelter entrance, directing them downstairs. "Come on, Miss Dorothy. This way to safety." "Mr. Santos, right this way. The shelter's ready." "Kowalski's, let me help with those wheelchairs." Everyone trusts him. He's the maintenance man's son. He's always helped them, always been kind. But the stairs don't lead to the official storm shelter. They lead to Timothy's hidden basement. 20 feet by 30 feet, reinforced concrete, specially designed for one purpose: to kill. 4:55 a.m. 23 residents are inside, believing they're safe. The storm is roaring outside now, wind screaming. Timothy says, "I'm going to check on others, then I'll seal the door to keep water out. You'll be safe here, I promise." He seals the steel door, locks it from the outside. Multiple deadbolts. Inside, the residents settle in. They have flashlights, blankets. They think they're prepared. They think they're safe. 5 a.m. Timothy starts the generator. He's already connected to the room's ventilation system. Carbon monoxide begins flowing into the sealed space. Inside, It takes a few minutes before anyone notices. Then my grandfather Ernesto smells something. Exhaust fumes. "Something's wrong," he says. Dorothy Reeves, the nurse, recognizes the smell immediately. "Carbon monoxide. The generator must be malfunctioning." They rush to the door. Ernesto pounds on the steel. "Timothy, the door is stuck. Timothy, help us." The Kowalskis in their wheelchairs can't reach the door. They're panicking, trying to breathe, already feeling dizzy. Linda Zhao is clutching her photos, calling for her daughter. "Margaret! Margaret, help!" But Margaret is 40 minutes away in Miami, stuck in evacuation traffic, having no idea her mother is dying. Outside that sealed door, 10 feet above them in the maintenance building, Timothy Vickers sits and waits, listening to the pounding grow weaker, listening to the screams fade. The hurricane is providing perfect cover, the sound of wind, the crashing debris, the complete chaos. 5:45 a.m., the pounding stops, the screaming stops. 6 p.m., all 23 are dead. My grandfather died trying to break down that door. His hands will be found bloody, fingers broken. The Kowalskis died holding hands. They're found that way 32 years later, skeletons positioned exactly as they fell. Dorothy Reeves died trying to help others, her medical bag still at her side. Linda Zhao died clutching those photos of her daughter, the last thing she wanted to see. 6:15 a.m. Hurricane Andrew's full fury hits Sunset Gardens. Timothy emerges, joins actual residents fleeing to the real storm shelter in a different building. He plays the role of terrified survivor. 6:30 a.m. The hurricane destroys all surface structures above the hidden basement. Timothy's crime scene is buried under tons of debris, hidden beneath the catastrophic damage of a natural disaster. August 25th. Timothy helps with rescue efforts, earning praise from first responders. All while his truck, parked safely off-site, contains $127,000 in stolen valuables. August 27th. Timothy Vickers tells his father he's leaving to check on a relative. Drives away, never returns, declared missing, presumed dead, honored as a hero. The journal's final entry dated August 26, 1992. "They never suspected. They never will. The hurricane killed them, not me. The perfect crime. I'm just a ghost now. Time to disappear and start over. The old and weak made me rich." Natural selection at its finest. All 23 bodies were found exactly where they died in that hidden basement. My grandfather, Ernesto Santos, near the door. His hands skeletal now, but forensics showed they'd been bloody. Broken fingers. He'd tried so hard to break out. Linda Zhao in the corner, still clutching disintegrated photos of her daughter. Robert and Helen Kowalski, wheelchairs tipped over, found positioned like they were holding hands even in death. Dorothy Reeves with her medical bag, positioned like she'd been trying to help others even as she died. The other 19 scattered throughout the room, each one with a story, each one someone's parent, grandparent, friend. Timothy Vickers had arranged their personal effects on that shelf with careful labels. Santos, $340 cash, gold watch. Zhao, jade jewelry, $2,200. Kowalski, silverware set, $1,800. He'd catalogued their value like inventory, like they were products, not people. Finding Timothy Vickers took less than 48 hours once they knew what they were looking for. He'd been living in Asheville, North Carolina, under the name Thomas Vincent for 32 years. Used the stolen money to start a small appliance repair business. Got married in 1995. Had 2 children. Lived in a modest house in a nice neighborhood. Paid his taxes. No criminal record under his new identity. He was a model citizen, a grandfather, a respected member of his community. When police knocked on his door on August 19, 2024, he didn't run, didn't resist, just asked calmly, "What took you so long?" In interrogation, Timothy Vickers showed zero remorse. "They were old," he said, shrugging. "They would have died soon anyway. The hurricane gave me opportunity, I took it. That's not murder, that's resourcefulness." Detective Rodriguez asked, "You killed 23 people for money." "I liberated assets from people who would have been dead in 5 or 10 years regardless. The hurricane would have killed most of them anyway. I just accelerated the timeline and made sure their wealth didn't go to waste. They trusted you. That's why it worked." He smiled. Trust is the most valuable tool a predator has. During the trial, he showed no emotion when families testified. No reaction when forensic details were presented. No remorse when photos of the victims, alive, smiling, human, were shown to the jury. The verdict took less than 3 hours. Guilty on 23 counts of first-degree murder. Sentencing, 23 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. Timothy Vickers, now 68 years old, will die in prison. His earliest possible release date is listed as never. As they led him out of court, he looked at me. I was sitting in the front row with my mother, and he said, "Your grandfather died fast. 45 minutes. That's merciful compared to how age would have taken him." My mother had to physically restrain me from going after him. This case destroyed my mother, not because we found the truth, that was closure in a horrible way, but because of what the truth revealed. For 32 years, Rosa says now, I told my son his grandfather died in a hurricane. An act of God. Something we couldn't prevent. Something no one could have stopped. She's crying. We're at the memorial site, where Abuelito's name is now carved in granite. But he was murdered, locked in a basement and gassed like an animal, by someone he trusted, someone who pretended to help him. And I never knew. I let my son grow up thinking natural disaster took his grandfather. I let him believe in a kind lie. Mom, you didn't know. I should have pushed harder. Should have demanded more answers. Should have. No, I tell her. You couldn't have known. No one could have. That's what made it perfect. Margaret Zhao had a breakdown after the trial. Her mother's last words to her were, "I'll be safe in the shelter." Linda Zhao believed she was going somewhere safe. Instead, she walked into her own execution. I was 40 minutes away, Margaret says at a support group for victims' families. 40 minutes. If I'd left earlier, if I'd driven faster, if I'd just insisted she leave with me the day before, the what-ifs will haunt her forever. But something came from this horror. Some small measure of change. Florida now requires disaster shelters to have independent monitoring. Multiple officials confirming who enters and exits. Video surveillance where possible. Accountability measures to prevent one person from controlling access. After natural disasters, missing persons are now investigated with enhanced scrutiny. The assumption is no longer automatically the disaster did it. There are protocols, checklists, verification systems. Underground construction now requires more rigorous inspections, documentation, and oversight. No more utility work that goes unmonitored. These changes won't bring back 23 people, won't give Margaret her mother back, won't let Rosa have one more conversation with her father, but maybe they'll prevent the next Timothy Vickers. Maybe they'll save lives in a future disaster. Hurricane Andrew killed 65 people with 165-mile-per-hour winds in 4 catastrophic hours on August 24, 1992. Timothy Vickers killed 23 people with carbon monoxide in 45 methodical minutes on that same morning. The hurricane's destruction was documented in real time, photographed, analyzed by meteorologists, recorded in history books as an act of nature, a force of physics, an unavoidable tragedy. Vickers's murders were hidden beneath concrete for 32 years, dismissed as collateral damage of a storm, forgotten by everyone except the families who never stopped looking. Now, 32 years later, we know the truth. And it doesn't make it better, but at least we know. I visit the memorial site monthly now. Bring my kids. They're 10 and 12, old enough to understand. They need to know their great-grandfather, need to know his name, need to know he existed, that he mattered, that he wasn't just erased by wind and time. The memorial lists all 23 names carved in black granite. Ernesto Santos, 72, Linda Zhao, 68, Robert Kowalski, 70, Helen Kowalski, 67, Dorothy Reeves, 79, and 18 others. My excavator, the one that broke through that concrete ceiling and revealed the truth, sits preserved at the memorial. They've turned it into a monument itself, a reminder that sometimes closure takes decades. Sometimes justice requires patience. Sometimes the truth is buried beneath concrete and lies, waiting for the right person to uncover it. I was 6 when he died, I tell my kids. For 32 years I couldn't visit his grave because he didn't have one. Now he does. Now we know what happened. It doesn't make it better, but at least we know. My daughter asks, "Dad, why did you have to be the one who found him?" I've thought about this a lot. The odds were astronomical. Millions of people in South Florida, thousands of construction workers, hundreds of old sites being demolished. What were the chances the grandson of a victim would be the one operating the excavator that day. I think Abuelito led me here, I tell her. I think he was waiting for someone in the family to find him, waiting for 32 years, and somehow, I was that someone. I touch his name carved in the granite. The stone is warm from the August sun, same sun that beat down on Sunset Gardens that terrible morning in 1992. He's not lost anymore, I say. He's not disappeared. He's not erased. We found him. We brought him home. We told his story. If this story moved you, please leave a comment. Share it with someone. These 23 people deserve to be remembered. Their names deserve to be spoken. Their stories deserve to be told. Thank you for listening. Thank you for remembering them. Rest in peace, Abuelito. Rest in peace to all 23 souls who waited 32 years to be found. We found you. Finally, we found you.